So there is one theme to the research that I'm engaged in, and it's basically chill the fuck out, right?
Hey, everybody, look, all you anxious people, all you people with autism, have you tried chilling the fuck out? Because it works pretty well. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is Dr. Brad Ferguson. He's a neuroscientist and a research professor at the University of Missouri. He has been involved in some amazing research involving the gut-brain axis in autism. So first off, I'd like to thank you for doing this. It's great to have you. I think where I'd like to start is with your origin story, because your path to becoming a scientist wasn't very straightforward. And while like everyone loves a good success story, what's even better is a story of how someone like fucks their shit up and then gets it together. So why don't we start there?
Yeah. So, thanks for having me on here. And like I was saying, I'm going to have some bourbon, so this might get a little bit more interesting as the night goes on, and feel free to have one as well if you're of age. So anyhow, yeah, this story is, I think it's pretty good. It wasn't good, obviously making the story and kind of writing the story is very painful. Lots of ups and downs. It's really the story of a long shot, like the horse in the race that is probably not going to win. And if he does, he's going to win big. And that's kind of what happened. So I started out, my parents didn't go to college. I started out playing sports mostly, baseball, football, track, all that stuff. And so school was kind of a second thing, maybe even like a tertiary type thing at times. And I barely graduated high school. I was probably like 2 absences away. No, I was 1 absence away from not graduating. And I graduated with 1,200 people, which is crazy. Right, it's a huge graduating class in Texas.
Yeah,
and so I was just one of the numbers, and it's like, oh God, I graduated. What am I going to do with my life? Like, I either got to go get a job or I got to go to college. My parents said, all right, so here are your choices. You can either go to college and we'll pay for it, or you can go get a job. I said, well, let me think about that. Okay, I'll go to college. Went to college. Started out community college. Didn't do well at all. Mostly F's. I think I got a D. I was taking anything from like botany to business law, and just struggled really bad. Partying all the time, and I somehow got good enough grades to I could transfer to a four-year university. So I finally got in, but they put me on all sorts of probation. They put me on academic probation. They put me on, they basically almost put me on house arrest. And they're like, hey, you know what? If you don't make good grades this first semester, we're going to give you 1 semester of probation and you're out. So I did my first semester. I did horribly and I was on probation. And finally, that second semester, I was like, all right, do or die. I've got to have good grades to stay here, or else I'm going back home, and I don't want to go back home. So I just eked it out the next semester. Got that, I think it was like a 2.0 or something, and that was tough. So anyway, struggle, taking business classes, finance classes, accounting, not doing well, and started struggling with some depression and anxiety as a result. Not surprising, right?
Yeah.
You're like, 19, 20 years old, you're struggling in life. I was in a fraternity as well. And just all the things that went along with that.
That doesn't really help. It's a big distraction, right?
I would say distraction is an understatement. A distraction would be like, oh, it's Monday afternoon and we've got a keg of Bud Light on the front porch. It's noon. I know you got class, but we're gonna finish off this keg sort of distraction.
Yeah, a little hard to stay focused in that environment, I think.
I'd say so, yeah. And the girls, oh. Anyway,
yeah,
had a little flashback. It was a good time. It was a great time, but not a good environment for trying to get good grades.
Right. So yeah. How does this turn around?
Well, that's a great question because I was just about to tell you. So I was like, man, what am I going to do? So started struggling with depression, anxiety. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a psychology class. I can burn an elective. I can take a class I want to take. And I did really well in it. I got a B. It's like, all right, man, maybe this is what I should do. Started studying psychology. Things turned around. And I was able to graduate with 3.5 GPA at the end. So brought it up quite a bit. Along the way, I decided I want to go to grad school, and mostly that was born out of the idea, again, of if I don't go to grad school, I'm gonna have to go get a job.
Yeah.
And so I applied to 10 PhD programs, got rejected from every single one. I still have all of the rejection letters in my closet, every single one of them, from all the universities.
Yeah, like how do you say, like, you know, I've been rejected 8 or 9 times, I'm just gonna keep keep trying and see what happens? You know, it's a lot of people would give up at that point, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. I'm a pretty hard-headed, stubborn guy, and I took it as a competition. Like, okay, you know, really, you're gonna tell me I can't have this, and this is what I want, so I'm gonna go get it. So I had to go get a master's first. So and that's a whole other thing, the financial struggle that came with all that. You know, chasing a dream, sometimes you're going to have to pay a lot of money. You're going to have to spend a lot of time and suffer with depression, anxiety. Sometimes, I mean, it doesn't come easy at all. To some people it may, but hey, that's kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
It's not a very good story.
Yeah, if you just have all the advantages and everything just works out right for you, then where's the story there, you know?
Yeah, your dad's a professor at Harvard and you grew up in private schools. And no offense to people that are like that. I'm just saying that's not as interesting of a story. Sorry.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, we read books, we read literature to read about struggle, and that's what this was. Anyway, so had to go get the master's degree. That's a big chunk of change, man, to do that. Took a couple of years, reapplied to some graduate programs, and I finally got in. I got into one. And fast forward, you know, my GPA with my master's was a 3.9. I got 1B, and then my GPA for my PhD was also a 3.9. I got 2 Bs. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the story in a nutshell. Lots of just depression and anxiety and just, am I going to make it through this? Do I want to quit? Kind of wavering back and forth between, you know, do I really want to do this? Is this really what I want to do in my life? Or should I do something else? I mean, there was one point in my career, I say my career because I was in college for, 14 years, I think.
That's an exceptionally long time, yeah. Community
college, undergraduate, master's, PhD, and then I did a postdoctoral fellowship, which is 2 years after your PhD. So you got your doctorate, congratulations, doctor. Let's do 2 more years of indentured servitude, basically.
Yeah.
And underpay you, and
right. Yeah.
All the way till now, until I'm a professor. So it was very difficult.
Yeah, especially when you're you know, you're feeling those anxiety, depression. Did you find a way to manage those things, or did you just kind of push through it?
Well, so I had a lot of friends who liked to hang out at the bars, and so we would go, you know, drinking at the bars. Sometimes it'd be noon, 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and we just go have drinks because everybody was feeling the same way. That's really the thing about it, is that I was not struggling in isolation. Everybody around me in graduate school was just tired, fatigued, stressed, depressed, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because graduate school really, whatever the saying is that, you know, whatever psychopathology you have, graduate school will take that and it will amplify it.
It's going to bring it out, yeah. Anything underlying that you may have gone your whole life without noticing, like this will, it's going to come to the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there were some times in there where it got pretty bad. I never took medication, never went to therapy, but man, I sure drank a lot of alcohol. and and slept a lot. God, the sleeping. And that's really good for memory consolidation and all, which, that's how I justified it, right? Oh, well, I'll study a little bit and then take a nap and help me retain, kind of store that information to long-term memory for the test.
Yeah. We're actually very recently learning a lot about how that works in particular, how sleep affects memory and how you can even, best utilize periods of rest to enhance your memory. It's pretty interesting stuff.
Absolutely.
But you may have unintentionally done yourself a favor by being, having depression naps every day.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because then you get into this cycle, and I'm sure some people can relate, where you want to put off doing something, and so you sleep, and then when you sleep and you put it off, other things kind of come to the forefront. You've got to take care of them in addition to that thing you put off, and then it just piles on top of you. And then what do? You get overwhelmed and you sleep. Mm-hmm. And at least that was my kind of
cycle. Yeah. So were you? You told me you were a DJ at some point. Was it during this phase, or is that later on?
Man, the whole DJing thing. That was in high school when I quit the football team. One of my buddies who also quit was a DJ at the local skating rink, and he's like, "Hey, man, you should come get a job up here. You just get basically paid to skate around and play music." And so I did. I got a job there, started DJing with him. I did a couple other gigs. And then in college, I DJ'd at like a honky tonk, like a West Country and Western bar, just real trashy place and real just shitty people and cheap bourbon and Coors Light and all that kind of stuff, and played country music. And then I also DJ'd with the local, the university radio station, 88.1 KNTU, the one for jazz.
Oh, you had the voice for it.
Well, and what's funny? Yeah, and what's funny is that it was the University of North Texas, UNT, and most radio stations will start with K, so they didn't want to make it KUNT. They made it they made it KNTU, and people would always call me up. So I worked the late shift. I worked by myself. People would call me up and say, "Hey man, I was just wondering, man, like, why didn't you call it cunt, man? KUNT." It's like, well,
can't really do that.
Yeah, because then why? What would you have to do on a Friday night? Besides, Anyway, yeah, DJ'd a lot. That was a lot of fun. And now that you mention that, maybe that's what I should have done. Maybe I should have
You think you could have had a bigger impact on the world by being a DJ?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's possible. It's possible, right? I don't know, but maybe I may not have made as large of an impact, but I sure would have probably been happier, and probably not as stressed out.
Yeah, you're a busy guy. You got a lot on your plate, my dude. You're doing a lot of shit.
Yeah. I think we all do. I mean, that's one thing, is that you've got to stay busy to stay relevant. You've always got to be chasing kind of what's next, and if whatever you're doing in life, is what you want to do, that's great. You're doing what you want to do. Hey, that's there's not a whole lot of people in the world that can say that. But if you're doing what you want to do in life and it's not leading to anything, maybe it's, I don't know, it could lead to a number of things. Maybe debt could lead to homelessness. It could lead to addiction, could lead to divorce, anything, and it's not going well, then you've got to be willing and ready to shift gears and do something else, and be okay with that.
Right.
And you can still chase those other things, but maybe just kind of do something else as well, kind of have multiple irons in the fire. So it's like a portfolio, right? When you're investing, you don't want to put all your money on Microsoft, mm-hmm. or all your money on Apple.
Well, that is a good strategy for some people, where they completely focus on one aspect of their life. But I agree that for most people, you're gonna have a better chance of succeeding at something if you like I said, put multiple irons into the fire.
Yeah, so that's why we stay busy around here, because it's all being a professor. A lot of people think that we're paid a lot, and you're really not. I mean, I could go make more as a manager of a fast food place right now.
Yeah.
Not to say anything against those people, but I'm just saying, like, you go through 14 years of school, you would think maybe that would translate into a higher starting salary, but it doesn't. You've got to keep working, and if something dries up, like right now we're dealing with COVID.
Yeah.
And that's impacted budgets. All this money for research. The first thing to get sidetracked and cut when there's a pandemic or a war, it's research.
Really?
Absolutely. Research, education, yeah, those things get just absolutely obliterated.
Well,
in the state of Missouri alone, the university took like a $20 million hit.
Yeah, well, I guess they're trying to focus on the here and now rather than the future,
Right.
Yeah.
And but it makes it hard, because then you're trying to apply for grants, and cancer's not going anywhere, autism's not going anywhere. All these conditions, they continue to exist, but yet the research kind of gets put on hold. And they're saying right now that with this little pause and due to COVID, and research funding kind of being cut quite a bit across the board, this is going to put us at least a decade.
Oh my God.
So the progress that we would have made during this time is going to amount to be about a decade.
Dude.
So it's really bad. I mean, so anyway, not to be a downer, but just to answer that question, if to have you say I'm really busy, and it's not because I want to be necessarily, it's because I have to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, could find myself out of a job.
Yeah. Well, so that's got to be a little nerve-wracking. So I know you're writing a grant proposal for something pretty huge right now. How's that coming along?
Yeah, there's a few different grant proposals. So one of them earlier this week, was it this week? Yeah, it got dinged. Dinged meaning it didn't get funded. So you spend 2-3 months writing this thing. It could be a couple hundred pages long. You submit it to the government. They take 4 or 5 months to get back to you, and it was just, sorry, we received a whole lot of really good applications. We couldn't fund yours. Best of luck. That was one.
Yeah.
Another one was we put this application together, and the faculty that put it together, I don't know what happened. A form wasn't filled out correctly, or they tried to apply to a National Institute of Health NIH section that wasn't accepting that level of a grant, and so they just immediately kicked it out. So we spent all this time on it, and then they kicked it out. So that one's gone. But the one that I'm focusing on is it's about a $2 million ask from the Army. I know we were going to talk a little bit about autism. We can do that too, but this just kind of alludes to what I was talking about earlier, where you have to diversify.
Mm-hmm.
This is in traumatic brain injury in the Army. So there's a lot of soldiers who go through training, basic training here in Missouri at Fort Leonard Wood, and they experience what's called blast overpressure. So when you throw a grenade, it blows up that blast wave that comes back at you. It kind of rattles your brain.
Yeah.
And these guys and girls and who are doing this training, they're coming out of training with traumatic brain injuries, and they haven't even been deployed. And so but not all of them. Not everybody does. Some of them do. Some of them don't. And they end up with things like PTSD, traumatic brain injury, which then associated then with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, sleep problems, headaches. They get ringing in their ears, things like that.
And this is a result from the trauma, or from the physical trauma, and not just the stress.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But again, not all of them do, and so we're trying to find what we call biomarkers, or something in the blood or in their heart rhythm that says to us, hey, this is predictive of a person who's not going to get PTSD after being around these blast waves.
Oh, you're looking at things like heart rate variability, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Heart rate variability. You can obtain a lot of information about how the nervous system is functioning, through heart rate variability. And this is just the amount of time that's between heartbeats over time. You may have felt your heart, skip a beat or something every once in a while. That's variability. When we're stressed, our heart rate variability is very low, because the body's trying to pump, the heart's trying to pump oxygen to the extremities to prepare you for fight or flight. Some of these soldiers are in that perpetual state. We think that if you have reduced heart rate variability, so really high like fight or flight response, and then you go get exposed to blast with hand grenades, C4, whatever they're using, that's going to put you at even greater risk of having things like PTSD, neuropsychological problems, things of that nature.
Right. So you can actually screen these people beforehand, predict that, like, hey, like there's a really high chance that you're going to walk out of this with some kind of problem. Like we need to do some sort of like training or therapy to address your HRV problem. And then we can send you out there, unless we can't fix it, but yeah, you can potentially save a lot of suffering that way.
I need you to be the guy that reviews my grant, because you get it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and send it to me. I'll take a look.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to you. Yeah, no, seriously, no, that's exactly it. And this is a whole new area of research. Is that let's not just look at the effects of something and go, well, you blow stuff up, it rattles people's brains, and some of them with PTSD. Well, let's just give them a drug and treat it. It's like, hey, how about? And hear me out. How about trying to figure out what may put somebody at risk for that in the first place, so they don't have to experience it.
It seems like a smarter way to approach it. It does, yeah.
That's kind of that's the direction.
It makes so much sense that like I can't imagine that not being a thing. There was something else you were telling me about, so vagus nerve stimulation, like with a like through the ear or something, right?
Yeah, we'll kind of switch gears. So similarly, so again, going back to this whole idea of an enhanced fight or flight response, so low heart rate variability that's associated with a high, fight or flight response, a high stress response. And we can actually treat that with what we call vagal nerve stimulation. And so what it is that the vagus nerve, vagus just means wandering, so you've heard of like the word vagabond, like that whole, root. This nerve wanders all throughout the body, and it originates in the brain, obviously, in the brain, in the spinal cord, in the brainstem. I was blanking. Yeah. In the brainstem, and this area then projects out to your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, your just about everything in the body. And we can actually stimulate it electrically through this branch of the vagus that's in the ear. So you have it on both sides, it's bilateral. And you wear this little like it almost looks like an earbud, and we can put this in the ear, and it's connected via a wire to like it's called a TENS unit, TENS. And this is crazy. You can actually buy these things on Amazon. They're the same kind of like stimulator that you would use for
like muscle cramps.
Muscle cramps.
Exactly. Yeah. I've heard of these.
Except, yeah, exactly. It's a TENS unit.
I'm about to go buy one. I didn't know because I saw the instruments they were using. I thought it was like a specialized thing.
Yeah, I would be very, very careful, because it seems like something so harmless, but you can kill yourself if you're not careful with how much stimulation. But anyway, so
no big deal.
Don't kill yourself. Don't do this. If you're going to do it, talk to your doctor and have them do it. But anyway, it's just experimental. This is research.
Yeah.
And so you put this piece in the ear, and then you turn it on, and it stimulates the auricular branch of the vagus nerve.
Auricular being like in the ear.
In the ear.
Yeah.
I would show you, but I got these big cans on like you do.
Yeah. If I can sort of interrupt, I don't think everyone knows the difference between like the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. If we can like make that distinction.
I'm sorry. I'm a neuroscientist, so that's like saying, well, anyway,
No.
The great point. So in our bodies, and then this is across species, but I'll talk about humans.
Mm-hmm.
You have what's called the autonomic nervous system, and so it almost sounds like automatic, and that's kind of what it is. It just automatically helps the body respond to the environment. And there's two branches of the autonomic nervous system. There's the sympathetic branch, which is the fight or flight branch. So when this is activated, it's like, oh, I saw a snake. That sympathetic nervous system activates.
Which is confusing because like you wouldn't. It says sympathetic, it makes you think it's like, oh, it must be nice, but no, it's like it's the thing that gives you panic attacks and makes you feel anxious and stressed. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. We're not talking sympathetic like sympathy. It's a whole different thing. But yeah, the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And it's largely, controlled by things like norepinephrine. There's a lot of different neuromodulators, neurotransmitters, and things that are associated with this. But when you get stressed, like let's say you see a tiger and it's coming at you, right? What's going to happen? Your pupils are going to get big. Your hands are going to sweat. The bottom parts of your feet are going to sweat. This is also like you can grip things and swing them or climb or on your feet, There's
like an evolutionary basis to all these things that are happening. It's not just torture. Like it's supposed to help you in some way. That's right. Like ancient and like doesn't make sense anymore, but like it's still there.
Absolutely. Like when you're taking a test or you're public speaking or something that really is stressful, it's not as useful anymore.
Yeah, and then having the sympathetic nervous system switched on all the time is bad. I mean, it's terrible. It's a symptom of like PTSD, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's bad. And so that's the sympathetic branch. So we're talking again, autonomic. We have the sympathetic branch, and then we have the parasympathetic branch, which is the opposite, and that's the one that's associated with rest and digest. So when you activate the vagus, you're activating that rest and digest section of the nervous system, which then calms you down. That's all there is to it. I mean, and so that's what we're trying to do in just about everything. We're proposing that as a trial in traumatic brain injury.
Mm-hmm.
We're proposing that as a clinical trial in autism, because a lot of people with autism or autistic individuals, I will say, some people prefer autistic individuals. Some people prefer individuals with autism. I mean, no disrespect by that. I just I got to pick one. So I was talking to somebody about that today online.
You talk to a lot of people with autism, which I guess we'll touch on that, because I think it's really cool that you have sort of a presence, and you even talk to a friend of ours. I'll let you continue on about the I'll bring that back up later. But yeah.
And so,
well, actually, I have a question about the nervous system. Yeah, can you tell me what vagal tone is? Because I've been reading some of the research and they refer to vagal tone, and I'm not sure what that means.
So, your vagal tone is just kind of how that vagus is activated, kind of, maybe even at rest. So if somebody has like high vagal tone, then they've got low heart rate, they've got low stress. It's promoting a rest and digest environment in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so, whereas if you have low vagal tone, it's the opposite. The way I like to think about this in the body, I wish I could show a picture of it. Maybe I could, but the way I like to think about this, the way that the autonomic nervous system is like, it's like driving a car, but having your foot on the gas and the brakes at the same time, right? And so you want to stay within the speed limit, which the speed limit is homeostasis, so this level of arousal, if you will, that the body likes. It's, relatively low energy state. And if you were to, you can speed up the car or speed up the nervous system one of two ways, right? You can push on the gas and overcome the brakes, or you can let off the brakes, right? And you'll just go faster.
Right.
And so that's the way that the body works. And so in some of these disorders, you have both. You'll have one of those problems. So let's say that in PTSD, for example, you could have either. We don't know which one it is. Oftentimes it's kind of difficult to tease that apart. You could have an individual who starts out, and it changes, right? So over time, an individual could start out with high sympathetic tone, and hence low vagal tone. Right. And they could switch over time.
And you can sort of train these things. I'm curious, does this method, do you think that it's going to increase vagal tone just by activating that? Yeah?
Yeah, I do. And that's the thing, is that you can train the nervous system to function a certain way over time. And we all do this, right? Kind of what you do on a Friday night, you come home, you eat dinner, you watch TV, you get on the computer, talk to people on Discord, play video games, whatever. That's kind of what your nervous system has been, trained to do. You can do the same thing like with these stimulators, if you will. You can kind of train the nervous system to calm down and be more in a calming state, especially if you were to associate that vagal nerve stimulator with something like some soothing music. So then eventually you pair the stimuli, right? I'm sure you've heard of conditioning.
Things that wire together, fire together. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So like you would condition the stimulus, this stimulator. Let me back up. You would pair it with, like, let's say some Beethoven, right? Some really nice Beethoven. And every night when you put the stimulator in, you listen to Beethoven. Stimulator, Beethoven. And all of a sudden one night, instead of using the stimulator, you just put on the Beethoven. Yeah. And you still have that vagal tone increasing.
I have the same conditioned response with League of Legends, and anytime I turn it on, I just get angry and depressed. I don't even have to get into the game. Like, just opening the launcher, I'm just like, I hate myself.
Yeah, and you got it right there, man. That's a conditioned response.
Yes.
And so that's the idea, is that we could pair it with the stimulus, with something like music or something else that's relaxing in and of itself.
And that way you don't have to shock yourself all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, because who has time for that? Like, you need to be sitting down, and it's got batteries, and it just takes. It's a whole ordeal.
What I find really interesting is that this is a physical way you can just go in and switch this thing on. People have been training different ways to activate the vagal nerve in other ways, such as through like yoga and meditation. But we're kind of just like hijacking it and sending impulses through it without having to do any work. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, I need a little more.
Do you, buddy?
It's time. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the interesting thing, is that obviously in conditions like autism, or somebody who's brain injured, we'd love to just do yoga or just do mindfulness training, where we are aware of the surroundings and kind of just let them filter through us and not really judge them and think. But we can't, right? That some people can't do that very easily, and so it's a lot easier to do things like this vagal nerve stimulation to calm you down. But it is possible to train the body to be more in this rest and digest state and have higher vagal tone, which is yoga, relaxation, mindfulness, things of that nature. So, and that's obviously preferred to pharmaceuticals or vagal nerve stimulation or whatever, other unnatural types of things.
Yeah.
So,
but not everyone is willing to do all that. So having an option is good.
It is, and that's where we come in. That's where our research team comes in. We like to think that we have a solution, that can help a lot of people. So not only just traumatic brain injury, but also, like I was saying, autism. That's another area that we are hoping to obtain funding to explore this.
So there's a neuroinflammation link with autism, and that seems to be present in a lot of these mental health problems as well, such as like depression and anxiety, especially OCD. I have a really nice paper that pretty conclusively makes a causal link between an increase of OCD symptoms and an increase of neuroinflammation. So does stimulating the vagus nerve result in a reduction of inflammation?
The short of that is yes, it can. Mm-hmm. And the opposite is also true, is that a stress state, like high sympathetic nerve tone, can decrease immunological functioning. And so what the research has shown is that when you have, say, an acute stress response, that inhibits the immune system. So inflammatory cytokines, basically it inhibits your body's response to a pathogen. And so that is why when you're really stressed, you tend to get sick, or people in general, when they are really stressed out, they tend to get sick.
I actually heard something interesting just before this podcast, and it's your immune system is like on high alert when you are stressed, but then it's when you rest afterwards that you become vulnerable, and that's why it sort of like burns out the gears or something to put it bluntly.
Yeah. It definitely, stress has effects on the immune system, and so it's just not good to be stressed. I mean, we all I don't have to tell you that. When you can chill out. So there is one theme to the research that I'm engaged in, and it's basically chill the fuck out, right?
Hey, everybody, look, all you anxious people, all you people with autism, have you tried chilling the fuck out? Because it works pretty well.
Really, I was starting to have a couple of drinks, but seriously, that's what it is. That's if I were to, they have these things where they say like sum up your research in just like 4 words. Yeah. Chill the fuck out. And not as a rude thing, but just as hey, this may actually help you. But again, some people can't, and that's where we have drugs and we have this vagal nerve stimulation and other things that we're trying. But that's the central goal of my research in multiple different areas: autism, traumatic brain injury, stroke, stroke research. It's just calming the nervous system down. The nervous system, when it's, let's say that you have a stroke, that changes heart rate variability, that decreases heart rate variability. So what happens when we decrease heart rate variability? Exactly what we said before. You have an increase in sympathetic nervous system functioning. So you basically have amped up that fight or flight response. So you have a stroke, your body goes into fight or flight.
Right.
And then we know about all the effects on the other target organs throughout the body. So constipation, that's one of them.
That's a big one for. I wanted to ask you. So people with autism seem to have an alarmingly high rate of constipation. Is that why?
See, now you're talking my language.
Okay.
So for everybody out there, that's been my main research, is why do so many people with autism have gastrointestinal problems? Why do they? I'm not so much concerned about trying to necessarily treat autism or cure it or whatever and get rid of it. I'm trying to focus on increasing the quality of life in people with autism that have co-occurring conditions. So autism and constipation, autism and sleep problems. Trying to fix those sleep problems, trying to fix the constipation so they can, have a higher quality of life. Because who wants to be constipated,
Yeah.
That's not
it's a higher quality of life for the people who take care of them as well if they're severe. Exactly.
Yeah. And so a large part of my research has focused on that question. Why do so many kids with autism and adults too have GI problems? A lot of people have constipation that have autism, and it's exactly what we think. I don't know for sure, but I have evidence to support this. Again, when I said that you have a high stress response, right? A lot of people with autism, they are very stressed. Their bodies are in a very high stress, high alert, fight or flight condition. Mm-hmm. What that does to the GI tract is it inhibits GI motility. Basically, your shit is not going to move. Your shit is just going to sit there and it's not going to move. Why? Like you said earlier, from an evolutionary perspective, why would you want to have to take a shit when you're running from a tiger, right?
Jeez, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You don't want to have to. So that's why.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, and I mean, that's why the body does that, is you don't want to have to devote energy to processing stool.
Yeah.
And excreting it
when you need to be fighting for your life.
When you need to be like beating up this tiger thing. So that's what happens to a lot of people with autism. And
that's where the whole CTFO protocol comes in.
Yeah. You have, and there's all sorts of different things that we're trying right now. What my research has shown in a nutshell is that there is a relationship between the stress response and constipation in autism. So if you have a high stress response in autism, you're likely going to have a lot of GI problems, specifically constipation. Mm-hmm. Constipation is the biggest problem in autism, and it's a shitty thing to have to deal with, right?
Literally, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's shitty, and but sometimes it's not shitty, right? Because there's not a
whatever. Okay.
Well, as GI researchers, this is just what we do. You gotta make light of the situation sometimes, because it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. So this is something that you're working really hard to try and alleviate, but it could have. I mean, teaching people how to relax could have a wide-reaching benefit, outside of just people with autism who can't take a shit.
Absolutely, because it's not just people with autism that this affects. I'm sure many people out there can relate. When you're stressed about something, you probably have some GI problems. You might have had some of the other. You might have had more of the diarrhea. You might have had the constipation. Irritable bowel syndrome, things of that nature. But the thing is that it's so relevant in autism because so many people with autism are very, stressed out. Very stressed out. They have a very stressed nervous system. And I'm watching your chat. Somebody says, I get diarrhea when I'm nervous. Yeah, that's exactly right. It can alternate, but the thing is that you have to think of it this way, is that these individuals are chronically stressed. And so this is not just like, I'm stressed. That could lead to diarrhea, constipation. These people are their bodies are always in a fight or flight, mode. They're always stressed. And so that vagus nerve is not telling the gastrointestinal tract to get smaller and kind of push it through. It can actually, when you have a stress response, right? They've done this work in animals, in animal models. When you stress out an animal, okay, this what I'm making right here, this is like your GI tract, like your intestines and things. When you get stressed, you know what the GI tract does? It goes whoop. So what happens normally is that there's this motion that's called peristalsis, and it's kind of like a snake moving back and forth, and the turd's in the middle right here, and it moves back and forth, and it kind of looks cool. It moves back and forth, and it kind of moves, the stool towards your anus and out toward, hopefully a toilet.
Everyone's learning something today.
This is how I teach undergraduates this stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's moving back and forth. It's moving the stool out. But what happens is that in order for the turd to move, it has to be touching the sides, right? So if you largen it and you're still moving around, the turd's just sitting in the middle, it can't move. So that is why you're constipated. I know it's a very rudimentary way of doing it, but I'm sure that everybody now can understand why, when you're stressed, you tend to have constipation.
I had a very clear picture in my mind. Actually, that helped a lot with the hand movements and everything.
Yeah. So that's
yeah. Okay.
I can do that some more.
Thank you. What?
That's fun.
What causes autism? And why is it vaccines?
So, have you seen that website where it's like, something about like, did you know that like vaccines cause autism or whatever, and then you click on the link and it's like they don't, or so I don't know. It's some kind of weird thing. It's like you're gonna click it and you think it's gonna be some like bullshit. Yeah, autism is caused by vaccines, and it's like because they're not. I don't know. I fucked that up. But anyway, no, they're not caused by vaccines. And here's the reason why. And I love that you asked me this question, because it is probably the number one thing that I talk to families and people with autism and people without autism about all the time, is the relationship between vaccines and autism. First of all, I will not mince my words at all. There is no evidence to suggest that vaccines cause autism. The reason why there was that is we had an individual named Andrew Wakefield back in the day that falsified some data and basically was trying to say that, these vaccines were associated with autism, and they weren't. The article's been retracted. Autism is not associated with vaccines. Now, here's the reason why. They thought that because right about the first time that a child is getting their schedule of vaccines is about the time when they should start hitting some social milestones.
Yeah.
So they get the vaccine, they come home, and they don't make eye contact, when all along it was likely that that child was not. Now, there are some people that do, there's some parents that say, well, they used to coo and make eye contact and all this stuff, they got their vaccine, and then they stopped. But it's not, it's a correlation, right? We all know that a correlation is not causation. But that's what it is. And to a lot of people, it just makes more sense to say, well, the vaccine did it, and it's just not true. The evidence is just not there, and you can go and find study after study, and I mean actual research studies where they've looked at this, not some Facebook post or some conspiracy theory YouTube video where all these moms agree with it or whatever. It's just not the thing. It's not the case. And people have also said something about thimerosal, right? I'm sure you've heard about thimerosal, which is it preserves the vaccine, and they thought that caused autism. And thimerosal was taken out of vaccines, I believe, back in like the 60s. And so you would think that if it was thimerosal in the vaccine, so you have autism rates going up, then all of a sudden you take out thimerosal and you would think that autism would go down if it was thimerosal. But guess what? It just kept going up.
Yeah.
And so it's not thimerosal. Anyway, yeah. So it's not vaccines. I don't know what else to say. Vaccines.
Yeah.
Don't alter the schedule. You're more likely to die from things like measles, mumps, rubella than you are for, say like autism, right? Autism's not going to kill you.
You're also not going to get it from your vaccines. Get vaccinated.
You're also not going to get it. So even if it did cause it,
yeah.
Right? Let's just say that for some crazy reason that it did, but it doesn't. The lesser of two evils. So those other things are likely going to kill you.
Something that actually might cause autism. It's a little scary. So antibiotics. Have you looked into that at all? How antibiotics could potentially, I don't know if it causes autism or like, so there's this hypothesis, right, that in overgrowth of like certain kinds of bacteria, like Clostridia, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Could lead to autism. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit?
So there's a lot of new research. It's a very hot field. I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
Gut bacteria and things that you can get through probiotics, and And obviously things like antibiotics they knock it all out. They're very non-specific. Let's say you get sick and you go to the doctor and you take an antibiotic, it's just going to wipe out everything. Some things will survive, some will not. And after that, some people experience some mood changes. It actually, what the very most interesting thing like of last year, I think that I saw was that gut bacteria. So a certain species of gut bacteria, specifically, and we've talked about this before, Lactobacillus reuteri, L. reuteri. It has been shown to, and this is animal model, right? Mm-hmm. So you give the animal some L. reuteri, it populates in the gut, it then transmits through the vagus from the gut back to the brain and says, hey, brain, chill the fuck out. That's what it does. Pretty much.
It's more specifically, so like, okay, I think it's something to do with serotonin, right? So like, what is it, like 95% of the serotonin in your body is found like in your gut, right?
Yeah, something like 90%, something like that. But yeah, a lot of people think it's a brain thing, but it's mostly synthesized in the gut. Anyhow, yeah.
Yeah. Like, so there's actually synapses in the gut that serotonin can bind to, and that's how it communicates with the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve communicates to the brain, the emotional regulation center of the brain. So the gut bacteria can actually control how much serotonin you synthesize. It can also control how much is being made. It's nuts that just certain species of bacteria can be the difference between whether or not you have a condition like depression.
Absolutely. That is a very hot area right now. And again, what's crazy about this, and this, is that you can go on Amazon and buy a lot of these bacterial species, and you can take them, they're in a capsule, and they have the potential to alter your mood.
I think it was Lactobacillus reuteri had the same effect in a study as Celexa, which is just nuts. Yeah.
That's in my opinion, and I'm already starting to see this, that the new way of treating, let's just say, mental disorders will be through the gut. It'll no longer be through necessarily directly, the brain and altering brain chemistry directly. It will be an indirect effect that is mediated by gut bacteria.
Because so many of these bacteria are making things like dopamine and serotonin and GABA, and these are really important neurotransmitters that if we're deficient in, then we have problems, and they're mostly made down there,
Absolutely, yeah. So that's what I think, and there's a lot of that research going on right now. Most of it's in animal models because we're trying to find mechanisms. So when and it's not just a single bacteria acting by itself. We have different probiotics and things that they're like, a bunch of them, 3 or 4 or 5 species together. And what do they do?
Yeah, it's hard, I guess, as a scientist to really talk about specific stuff because the research just is not conclusive yet. It's not all out there. It's just still being performed.
Absolutely, it is. And I have a lot of parents. I work mostly in autism. Like I said, I diversify the research I do, but mostly in autism. And I have a lot of parents come to me, and they have access to the same internet we do, and they'll get on there and say, "Hey, Brad, I heard about probiotics and treating autism and things. What do you think?" And I always say, my first thing is, hey, talk to your doctor first and foremost, because even though you can buy these things on Amazon and have them there like that afternoon and take them, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're safe. So first and foremost, safety. Second of all, I will let them know, hey, look, there is some research out there showing that this is working in animals. The mechanism is there. Your son has a lot of high stress response, a lot of constipation, and this one species, L. reuteri, may help.
Yeah.
And then the second thing you do, and this is in medicine, is you're always considering that risk to benefit ratio. So if I were to take elriterry, how much risk am I taking on versus how much benefit could I receive? And the risk is relatively low. It's not going to kill you,
But there is, I guess, some risk of like when you introduce one species, you're kicking out another, right?
Absolutely, and you could, and so that's the thing, is that and that could be on top of other treatments you may be doing. So you may be a lot of kids with autism got ADHD, so they're on methylphenidate, and then you throw a probiotic on top of it that kind of has a different type of mechanism, kind of in the opposite direction, the calm down direction. And then, so what does that effect have on your attention span?
Yeah.
So these are things that you always have to take into consideration. But yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and you just watch within the next 10 years, I think, again, this is just me, nobody else's opinion, just mine, that we will be treating mental disorders through the gut with probiotics.
So long as the pandemic doesn't slow things down too much.
And kill us all.
Yeah.
Kill us all, yeah. If we're all dead, then, it's back to the drawing board. But yeah. And that's what I think. And I see a lot of research going in that direction. I could be wrong, but, that's just my projection. I've read a lot of books on, psychoactive drugs, antidepressants. There's books out there on like how it's no better than placebo.
Yeah. Johann Hari, Lost Connections, it opens up with that. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole placebo effect is very strong. So, and there's that too. I mean, if you can cause a change in your behavior, a change in your mental state just by thinking that things are good, then what does that say about positive thinking? The power of being positive. And your podcast is about, self-development, psychology, overcoming. And I think it's a great segue to start talking, maybe about that. It's just the power of the mind, that when you're positive and you're moving forward, how that could change your life. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that a lot of people, so even when it comes to something like money, like when the first time someone reads like Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's like, oh my God, like it's suddenly like their whole perspective shifts and they become an entrepreneur and make a bunch of money. It's like, for a lot of people, it's like just realizing, just a change in mindset is all it takes, to completely change your life. I think when we were talking about sort of your origin story, we got distracted and we kind of glossed over the whole fact that you actually, didn't become a car mechanic and actually graduated, but so I don't know exactly what advice maybe you have to give on your mindset in that time, that what kept you going, and what helped you to make these good decisions. But I'd love to hear.
Wow. That's a great question. And I like to keep things simple, and it's going to sound cheesy, and here's the deal is I don't have a magic potion. I don't have a pill. I don't have go to this website and do this program sort of thing that's going to help you. But what I can say is that you just have to keep going. You just have to keep going. You have to keep pushing, and life is going to suck. Sometimes it's going to be great. Sometimes it's going to be really shitty. And you just have to know that on the other side, things are going to get better. I mean, unless you die, right? Unless you die, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? You would die, right? And if you're not dead, then the worst thing has not happened yet. I hate to put it that way, but that's the way I looked at it, is that, even on my worst days, when I thought that there was absolutely no way I was going to get a doctorate because these professors are so hard on you. It's like a fraternity. I mean, it really is. When you're in graduate school, and I think a lot of it's changing just because of, number one, it needs to. It's really bad on one's mental health, but this is the way things have been for a long time as well. If you want to be a doctor, then I'm going to put you through what I had to go through, which is a lot of stress and struggle, and I'm going to make it really hard. But on those days where it was really, really difficult, I'd say, well, you know what? I'm alive and I have myself. I'm not dead, and they haven't killed me, so I'm going to keep going. Mm-hmm. So that's the number one thing, is to not give up. And every once in a while, you're going to fall down, right? We all fall down. Nobody is standing up, every time. But the next best thing to do is that when you do fall down, get the fuck back up. Get up, and sometimes, and it could be small steps. You have to make small steps sometimes. So if you're in bed all day because you're depressed, hey, a good step could be getting out of bed for, an hour. Could be taking out the trash for that day. It could be feeding the cat. It could be doing something so small, but you have to make progress and you have to push forward. That's the number one thing, because obviously, we're not all here, in perfect mental health. And if you are, that's great. You're probably not listening to this, right? You're probably not listening to a podcast about self-development if you've got it all figured out, right? But that's my main advice, is that you're going to get knocked the fuck down and you have to get back up, and it's hard. Anybody that tells you it's easy they're just trying to sell you something. It's not easy. Yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy. And to really, the next best thing that you can do is to surround yourself with positive people. Because again, we've talked about this. If you surround yourself with people who are detrimental, who are complainers, who are negative people, who are worriers, then that's what's going to happen to your mind. You're going to fall into that
emotional contagion. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Emotionally contagious. Yeah. It's and so you have to surround yourself with good people. And you know what? If that's one person, so be it. If that's 10 people, that's great.
And you may be like really tempted because you have, you're in a bad place, and then maybe you have some people you really love or that you really appreciate that are in bad places themselves, and you're like, I can't push them away, like they need me, but like no, like you need to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people. It's like you have to be in a good place. And I give this analogy all the time. It's like if you're in this river of shit, or just a choppy water or whatever, and then like you can't save someone if you're still stuck in it. You gotta go to the edge, get a rope and throw it to them, and then you can pull them to the shore. But you can't. You're just gonna drown with them, if you're stuck down there, together, And I think just the focus of doing what's best for you, so that you can be in a position to help other people, I think it's a really good message.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. And sometimes you don't, if you can help each other and it doesn't bring you down too much, to where you're both just wallowing, in your own self-pity, that can help. But yeah, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of friends. I honestly don't. I don't have a lot of friends for that reason, because meeting with you all online and talking to people, I like to find people who are positive, who are like pushing forward, trying to make themselves better, because, that's what life's about, because if you're not getting better, what are you getting?
You're dying. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's really the main two things, I think, is, again, you get knocked down, get back up, and surround yourself with positive people, keep pushing. Life is hard. I mean, it's really nothing special. Like, I really don't have that, like grab you by the collar.
Yeah.
One thing that's really helped me a lot is listening to motivational talks and things on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard of Les Brown?
I don't know Les Brown.
Les Brown is, he's awesome. Look him up on YouTube, and he's infectious. To me, he's infectious. He has this like gospel kind of like preacher type style, where he's kind of like yelling at you, and I can't help but just feeling motivated in the morning when I listen to this guy, because he tells you his story, right? And I don't want to ruin it for people, but he's a guy that had some really shitty upbringing, he was labeled educably mentally retarded. So you could teach him a little bit, but he's still, we call it intellectually disabled, but back then it was called mental retardation.
Yeah.
Basically, they didn't have a lot of hope for him. And now he's super successful. He's run a radio station. He was a DJ on a radio station. And now he travels the world doing motivational speeches. And he's put a lot of them out there on YouTube for free to listen to. And sometimes when you just need that extra, help me out, like listen to these things online, and they can spark a fire.
I think it's like programming your subconscious, really. That kind of stuff. You can't really learn Spanish while you sleep, like that. But I think that the things you take in can really change, like maybe the thoughts that populate your mind and the things that you think of and feel. Just
turn the news off. Turn the fucking news off. Turn that shit off.
Yeah.
It's not going to make much of a difference at all in your life. Things are going to happen, and turn it off. And when you're sitting there and you're doing work, turn on some motivational talks on YouTube. It sounds so just simple and cheesy, but seriously, that has sparked me so much. I am a professor at a university, and I sometimes struggle with that spark, and I just do that. I'll be responding to emails or writing papers or whatever, and I've got Les Brown going on in the background. Before I know it, man, I'm like, yeah, now I'm feeling this, dude. Like, let's go. I'm taking this day on, and I'll go out there and kind of beat my chest a little bit.
It gives you that hit of dopamine, let you know you're on the right. I guess like when you were going through this rough period, you knew what the right path was. You may not have had a lot of faith in yourself, but you knew what the right thing to do was. It's just getting yourself to do it. You just needed that like spark of motivation.
I didn't even know. I surrounded myself with people who were absolutely negative. I sat there and I wallowed in my self-pity. I found friends that were also depressed and were also miserable with their lives, and we hung out, and we were all miserable together, and nobody went anywhere. And I finally said, you know what? I like you guys, I care about you, but I got to move on, dude. I got to get my life together. And started thinking positive. And hey, I learned, hey, I like Joe. Joe's a good guy. It's actually his name.
Yeah.
And my friend Joe, man, I tell you what, it could be raining turds, and this guy would still find something positive to say about it. I'm not kidding you. Like, he's just, he's the absolute most positive dude in the world. And it's like, it's infectious, and you hang out with that and you start to feel good. You start to feel really good about yourself. And then you start to want to feel, you want to feel good. So you hang out with him, and then he talks really cool to you. And he's like, hey man, life is great, and it's raining turds, but you know what? It's got a good like diversity of different bacteria, so it's gonna help out your gut. These are things that can help, but I'm just saying what you can do right now is to cut negativity out.
What about probiotics? Do you think that maybe depressed people should take those? Or
again, if they are, they need to consult their physicians. But if we're talking about just the potential of the gut microbiota to alter mood and behavior, absolutely.
Yeah.
The research is there. We just need to do more research. Again, if there's interactions like you suggested earlier, there's interactions between different bacterial strains, and we don't live in bubbles. So like a lot of these research studies they do in mice, they're done in what they call germ-free mice. So they completely wipe out all the bacteria in these mice. They have nothing in them, and then they inject. They put Lactobacillus reuteri in there.
They have to wear like spacesuits in those environments too, right?
Yes, yeah. It's a sterile environment.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if they're doing it right.
And they inject. There's with those sterile mice, like so many of them end up developing autism-like symptoms, like right, and then.
there's been a lot of research on this, and there's many. And the interesting thing about it is that we have mouse and rat models of autism, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you do that, right? How do you make a rat or a mouse?
You make like rough comparisons, like they have impaired social behavior, right. A heightened stress response, Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But we have different models, and all of them tend to show different things, and it's interesting. It's really the Wild West, but it's just what we have. Mm-hmm. It's just the state of the science, and we don't know. Again, we're going to touch on that. We don't know what causes autism. We have no idea. I don't want to say we have no idea. We do have some thought. The current, if we wanted to talk about that.
Absolutely, because I think that maybe that there's a lot of causes. I mean, I've heard things like ranging from vitamin D, to all the way to the microbiome. So I'm curious what you have to say.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
This has been fun too, and I appreciate everyone that's tuning in, listening. It's just. I'm really glad you invited me here. This is a lot of fun. Just sit here and talk about this stuff.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you came for sure. Yeah, you're. Yeah, go ahead.
So causes of autism. So the current prevailing thought as to what causes autism is we've done genetics research and we haven't found any genes. Sometimes a gene, when they find a gene that is associated with autism, it explains 1%. So like you take 100 kids with autism and 1% of them will have that mutation or that de novo mutation or that alteration. So that doesn't really help, right? 1 in 100 doesn't really help. So we've done the genetics, and that was through the 90s and 2000s, and we're kind of moving away from just looking at genetics. Now what we're looking at is what's called epigenetics. And so I know you're probably familiar with the field of epigenetics, but epigenetics is not they're not alterations in the genome and the genetic code. So the C to G, the A to T, the amino acids binding, it's not an alteration in that. But on each one of those, parts in your DNA, picture it as like there's these on-off switches. And a stressor from the environment can either amplify what a gene is doing and encoding that protein, or it can turn it off, right? Mm-hmm. So you can have altered phenotype, which is the expression of a genotype. So you have a certain gene and you have brown hair. Well, the brown hair is then your phenotype, right? The genotype is for brown hair. It develops, it's like a recipe, it's a cookbook. Cooks up the brown hair and then expresses it as your phenotype, which is brown hair. So with that being said, what they think, and we have some evidence in our lab to suggest this, is that the cause of autism is likely due to a gene by an epigenetic by gene by environment association. So what that means is that when the mother is pregnant with her child, right? And let me back up. So we've seen autism in children who have no history in their family of autism, right? No history, right? So you would think that if this thing was Mendelian or it's inherited genetically, then, and it is, but you still see it. You still see autism even in people who don't have it in their families.
Yeah. So it could be environmental.
It could be, yeah. And that's the thought, is that the current thought is that the mother is pregnant. Mm-hmm. There's perhaps a stressor that occurs at a certain time of pregnancy. Mm-hmm. So a certain time of neurodevelopment, this development of the neural tube and how it all folds over and creates you as you are. Mm-hmm. And that causes some type of an epigenetic change. It may turn on or turn off certain genes. And when you do that during neurodevelopment, it's like saying, well, I know I'm supposed to add flour to the recipe at this point in time, but I'm not going to do it. I don't know how to put it. I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all, but that's kind of like the thought is that you have a recipe, and the recipe is to create this human with certain characteristics. And when you alter kind of how that recipe is carried out and made, like maybe you forget an ingredient or you leave one out. And I think that's really, I try to explain these things in the ways that people will understand. I'm trying not to be disrespectful at all. It sounds kind of weird, but that's kind of how I picture it, is that, you're doing it at a certain point in time, in neurodevelopment. And when you do that, then that leads to the autistic phenotype, which is, decreased sociability, maybe effects on language and things of that nature, repetitive movements and motions and restrictive and repetitive behaviors. That's what I'm looking for. So, yeah, but that's the current thought is, this is what's going on, and we just don't know. And quite frankly, I'm not so concerned with that. I'm more along the lines of, we're all neurodiverse, and we all, there's different levels of sociability, right? You may be more social than me, and I may not be so social, and that's okay. But like I said, my research is mostly focused on
helping the symptoms. Yeah.
Helping co-occurring. Yeah. So yeah.
So what's and there's some benefits to this neurodiversity thing that like. Some people think that like Einstein like had some kind of autism, like it's like I don't. There are so we have a friend who you met, but he got his diagnosis and it was like, the whole world is crashing down on me, like my life is over, but it's what would you say to somebody who maybe received some kind of autism diagnosis, right, and is feeling really down about it?
Wow, that's great. First of all, what I would say is, and let's, let's assume that we're talking about the more higher functioning end of the spectrum, right?
Typically, yeah.
We have to know that autism is on the spectrum, and on this end, you have people who are severely affected, who may be nonverbal. They may self-injure themselves. It's very bad. It's not a good situation.
Yeah.
And then you have people on this other end of the spectrum who are verbal. They have more splintered skills, so they may be really good at chemistry or like knowledge of trains or movies or anything, but then they may have a really hard time with socializing. They just need they need help with socializing. Otherwise, they're very intelligent individuals. So
and in a lot of cases you would have no idea that this person has a diagnosis, if they hadn't went and got one. They seem to fit in quite fine.
There are, I know a lot of people who after many years they'd say, hey, I'm diagnosed with autism. Really? I never saw that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I'm pretty easy to talk to. I don't know.
I don't know.
But anyway, it's so I guess we're focusing. Here's the spectrum. This is severe. This is not as severe. Let's talk about these people out here, right? So I don't want to say that these people out here, it generalizes to them. I respect that side of the spectrum, but we're going to talk about the more higher functioning. And what I would say is that try to focus on what you're good at, because a lot of these individuals are so fucking smart. They are incredibly smart in some areas, and if they tend to start focusing on their shortcomings, then they won't focus on what they're really good at. And it could be anything. A lot of times it's memory,
or
or obtaining knowledge of something.
The strong points.
Exactly. It could be like adherence to schedules. Like a lot of these people will make really good security guards, or, people that do jobs that are very repetitious that people like myself would just space and be like, oh yeah, I can't do this. These people are like, they'll do it for 40 years and they won't even say a word.
Well, I mean, there's far more prestigious jobs for people that somewhere on the higher end of the spectrum, like maybe like programmer or engineer, architect, author.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is just that to focus on those
negative aspects, being a crutch. Yeah.
No, on the focus on the positive. Focus on what you're good at.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, focus on what you're good at.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
And that's what I would say. I think it's so hard to just focus on the negative and these things are wrong with me, because that's what the media is telling you. This is wrong, that's wrong, and that's really shifted a lot. So I've been in the field of autism research for about 13 years now. When I first started, it was all about how are autistic people, how bad are they at stuff compared to people without autism? And we're past that now. We're like, what can we do to lift these people up and get them jobs? And so a lot of people, like I said, even on the higher end of the spectrum, they may be affected socially, but they're really good at like bagging groceries, or like you said, it could be something like computer programming or engineering,
or making dank memes. Yeah.
Or dank memes.
Yeah.
Or but that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Focus on what you're good at.
Yeah.
And don't listen to, and this is easier said than done, right? I'm not sitting here trying to say that this is easy, because it's not. I don't have autism. I don't know, but I've worked with literally probably 1,000 people with autism I've seen lots and lots of people with autism in my research studies, anywhere from doing MRIs and functional MRIs to clinical trials and what have you. Mm-hmm. That's the number one thing I found, is that a lot of them spoke very negatively about themselves. And I said, no, listen, you're fucking smart. Okay. You may not be the most social in the world, but we can work on that. But you're very smart. You're very good at this. And then maybe you should focus on that. And
there are two things that come to mind. One is that, like, I think that there's sort of a bias in the people that come in, and that you interact with, because they're probably more closer to the severe end, because they're being part of a research, and that means they have a diagnosis. They've it probably expresses pretty clearly that they're on the spectrum. And a lot of people who who are on the spectrum, like you said, like you just can't tell. They seem like there's nothing different about them. I think I lost track of the second thing, but
well, most of the ones actually in a research setting, and what I do in like brain imaging and stuff, they are higher functioning because they tend to be able to tolerate it better.
Right.
Being in a tube and beeping and booping and all this. But yeah,
they tend to be on the higher end. Well, the other thing is that there's things that they have detriments with, like such as like social skills. Those are things that can be worked on and trained. And obviously, like depending on how severe it is, it's to an extent. But for like somebody who has like a slight dent in their like social abilities, it's like you can work on that, dude. Like you can become like even better, if you. Yeah.
Let me say something.
Yeah.
Let me say something right now. If anybody is listening to this either live or later on down the road, if you want to talk and you have autism, I am more than happy to talk to you. And just like I talked to your friend, I'm more than happy to talk. Look me up, find me somehow. I'm not going to put my information here, but there's my name and autism, and I'm sure you could find me. Feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to talk to you if you need help with anything. Just a friend to talk to, I'm willing to talk. And I do that all the time, even with the patients we meet with. I don't like to be this, untouchable like researcher, and then I go home at night and I don't think about this stuff. No, it affects me. I go to bed at night, I'm thinking about these kids, I'm thinking about these patients. I want to help any way I can. And as long as I have the, power and the energy to do it, I'll be doing it, So, yeah. I do want to say that, and I think that's what needs to happen. I don't want to be up on this ivory tower and I don't have autism, and I act like I know a lot about it, but that's not it at all. I've just seen a lot, and I, again, want to focus on the positive. And I think that these people, and really anybody, I mean, this goes for anyone, but especially in autism, don't focus on the negative, focus on the positive. If you need help with socializing, there's a lot of people out there that do, even people without autism. Socializing is sometimes, it's a very difficult thing. And if it's something that you're interested in learning, I'm not saying that you have to be social if you have autism, but if it's something that you want to do because it will help you get further in life, in the workplace, or whatever you do in life, feel free to reach out. I can help you. There's a lot of resources out there with your, probably locally, that would help you much more than me. I know that at the center that I work at, we do social skills training, where we put people in situations that come in and they're just every day, just, boom, 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 like a job interview situation. And these people are really, really smart, but they would freak out and run out of an interview. If we could just keep them in that room, they would get that job and they would just kill it, they would just be great. Or, and that's what I think is really important. That's my message is, stay positive, don't focus on the negative, and do what you're good at.
Reach out for help if you want to work on the areas that you're struggling with. Yeah.
Absolutely, don't be afraid to reach out for help. A lot of people don't like to do that because they may see it as like a sign of weakness. I feel weak because I'm reaching out for help. But no, that's actually a sign of being strong. When you reach out for help, that's actually saying, hey, I'm vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I need help, and please help me. That's actually a sign of strength. And I don't think a lot of people see that. It's hard to see, right? When you're in that low, this goes for autism or not,
Yeah. It's a kind of confidence, really.
It really is.
It's why you stand up with a straight posture, and it's kind of like confidence, like you're leaving yourself exposed and vulnerable. I think you do the same thing with with your brain, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard. It's easier said than done. And people are in different areas of this. Some people are extremely depressed, can't get out of bed. Some people just need a little shove. Either way, just know there's always someone there to help you, and find those people, find the positive people, find the helpers, and hitch your wagon to them, and life can get better. It's kind of a mixed bag online, right? I'm sure we've all come across people who are extremely toxic, but we've also come across people, like I've come across you, and you're extremely smart and very articulate and successful. I don't know a whole lot about you, but you're able to do that. So you just have to kind of find people who are out there, and they can really help you in life, and you can help each other.
Yeah, I try for sure, and I think this is a really good positive place to maybe end the podcast on. What do you think?
I think it's a pretty good idea. Yeah, I'd love to come back sometime. Happy to answer questions if people have them later on. Yeah, absolutely. I have so many more questions for you, and I'd love to have you on again sometime, my guy. So as far as people reaching out to you, if they felt like they needed to, how could they find you? What do you think's best? Email
is a really good idea.
How about Discord? I really like Discord.
Okay, sure. What's your Discord tag? How can they add you?
I'm going to. How can I? Myelin. So Myelin, like Myelin Sheath, Myelin, MYELIN, #, 2553 on Discord, and my icon is the Sublime Sun, because I'm a big fan of Sublime. Myelin number 2553, and I have that thing on all day, and I'm always listening, talking to my friends, and I'm always happy to talk.
I know that you sometimes go into Discords full of that are specifically for autistic communities, and they have a lot of questions for you, and you're able to be sort of a mentor to some of these people. So I really respect that about you. I think that's really cool. And I know you do a lot of, altruistic things, and that's maybe we didn't quite touch all that, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, man, it was really great talking to you. I had a good time, even though we did spend maybe a little too much time talking about constipation and shit. But aside from that, it was a great talk, man.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for having me, and best of luck with the podcast. This is a lot of fun.
All right, man. Take care. Good night.
All right. See ya.